Hey, Kareem, thanks so much for joining me today. And, I'm really excited about having this conversation with you because I think it's something that has affected me tremendously in my life. And I think it's such a valuable thing that is overlooked in work and in business. And, most people don't take a really full view of their lives and include their health and the impacts of that.
Right.
So I can't wait to get into this. But before we do, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and telling everyone what you do.
For sure. Well, first things first, I appreciate you having me on. I think this is an awesome opportunity. My name is Kareem Rawlins. I'm a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for 12 years. I'm originally from Toronto, Ontario. I moved here in 2008. Got married in 2009, started my business at that time. My brand is GoodFITT Personal Training Wellness Services. I operate just out here in the West Island. So it's been quite a ride for the past 12 years. Learning experience has been phenomenal. I've worked with an amazing group of talented other trainers, professionals, clientele that have given me the opportunity to help them better their lives.
From a perspective of someone who's in the industry of health and wellness, how do you feel a person should approach health and fitness as it relates to the whole picture of their lives?
They really have to take a look at, where you have. I don't want to say you have to ignore what you've done in the past, but in a sense you kind of do, especially if you're starting not really from scratch, but just pressing the reset button, which a lot of people are doing.
Right.
Not just post-pandemic, but even before that. Mm-hmm. It's understanding what your needs are, identifying those things, and what exactly it is that you need to do for yourself. What's going to help you to be propelled to move forward.
Right.
What things are going to hold you back, what you perceive as being particular roadblocks that might get in your way, because we all have our different roadblocks. I mean, you being a business owner, you even said you used to do these things and now you don't.
Right.
And probably it's because you have good reason. Your work schedule picked up, maybe family life, different things have happened. A lot of people, their health became a challenge for them. So it's understanding and establishing, okay, what areas do I need to identify that need to be targeted, and how can my health and wellness play a role in all of these things? One thing that I've come to learn from talking to different people is that how much all the more so mental health has played a major role. I mean, again, we'll dig into that a little bit deeper, but it's that element really plays a major role, and that ties into your wants and your needs and how that can affect the outcome of which you're seeking, right? It does make a difference in that way, because if you are confident in your abilities to be able to fulfill those goals, whether it be small or big, it goes a long way. Whereas if you're not so confident in it, it does play a factor as to how far along you go, whether you decide to stop at some point, whether you even get started. So it's establishing those kind of areas first, and then deciding, okay, where do I need to start with first? What do I need to hit first? And how can I start simple and then move into more bigger things? I think the main challenge that people run into is that they want to do everything again.
That's right.
They want to go big or go home.
Yeah.
But that's not really the best way to go about it. You want to be as simple-minded about it as possible. And once you see that those simple changes are achievable, it plays into everything else, because now you can recall, okay, I was able to do this. How can I apply it to doing this, right? Again, it can apply to anything you do in your life, especially even in your job. If you started out as being selling one product, how do you now enter in 10 more products? Well, you follow the same format that you did with one, recognizing that there's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be some difficulties and challenges that come with those other 10 because you had it with the one, and just becomes a process of one step at a time, and you find the process that works the best for you.
So I really, really love a lot of what you said there, but one thing really stuck out to me that has been a major roadblock for me in my life, and that is not properly hitting the reset. And I've tried to, when things work out for you in one area, you try to take that mentality and sort of just apply it to other areas. And I think that is where when you come with the go big or go home idea, it's like it's hard to humble yourself and say, look, I really suck right now. I'm really out of shape. I can't even run down the street. And it's hard to take that and suck at something long enough till you get good at it, right? And I think the critical part of that is being able to hit the reset button, which is something that I have always struggled with. And that has been a tough thing for me because when I was in really good shape, it was easy to be in really good shape.
Right.
And when I'm out of shape, it's easy to stay out of shape,
exactly,
you know? So let me ask you this. This
Sure.
is, you know, where would a person, say someone like me who understands what it feels like to be in shape, where would I start?
The first thing I would say not to do is not to pay attention to what you see around you.
Okay.
And the reason why is because easily we get distracted by social media, diet fads, workout fads, things like that, that we think would be applicable to us, but we don't realize that we, again, have to assess ourselves, evaluate ourselves to see what's going to be the best deal. Not to plug myself, but the best way to go about it, actually, I think, is to see a professional and ask them, okay, here's my goals, here's where I am, here's what I'm starting out from. What do I need to do next? And then be able to take things basically step by step with that person. Now, if the person is good enough to be able to say, listen, let's have a conversation, let's see where we can take things. And they're not solely focusing on, I'm going to get this person as a client, but they're looking at it from I'm going to help this person out by answering their question standpoint. Then you have a good basis to even go home to and think about it, go, okay, let me begin with this. Another suggestion I always say is start with the simplest things. So if your goal is to get back into being active, start with the simplest activity that you know you can do within, let's say, within the span of time that you're able to give it. So if a person can only walk 10 minutes a day, focus on walking 10 minutes a day. If the only diet change you can make is really drinking water, focus on drinking water. And then that becomes part of the process because you just want to create habits that you can apply into other things. Really, when it comes down to change and getting restarted or pressing the reset button, it's looking at what your current habits are, how you can adjust them and change them to be better choices, and then making those better choices your new habits, as opposed to trying to wipe the slate clean and then start exactly new. Because it gets discouraging when you try to do that and then it doesn't happen, and then you go into the cycle again. I stop, I start, I stop, I start. So instead of stopping and starting, it's starting, first of all, when you're ready, and then starting with the simplest changes that you can make. And there's always a simple change you can make in anything that you do, especially when it comes to diet and exercise. You choose what's going to be the easiest route for you, and you work from there. It doesn't always have to be the hardest route that you go with. What our mentality, sometimes ego plays a part. We say, no, I have to go with the hardest thing.
Right.
When you really don't have to. You got to keep it as simple as possible.
Well, you're right. And I think that's how you build those habits, right? So think of it as an incremental shift, because if you really want to change your life, you're not just going to do that overnight. You're going to do that over time.
For sure. One push-up, for example. I gave the example of doing push-ups. I said, if you did 10 push-ups from August 1st to August 31st, and every day you added a push-up, you'd get to 31 push-ups by August 31st, but really you got to 775.
100%.
How much does that change your body?
Right.
And you don't even think about it because you're going, oh, it's just 31 push-ups.
That's right.
Whereas it's daunting at first to think, I have to do 4 sets of 31 push-ups or 5 sets of 20, right? Now it becomes so overwhelming. Whereas if you just broke it down into smaller steps, it doesn't seem like it's that daunting anymore. And now it becomes achievable. And once it becomes achievable, that success pattern you create into your mind. And when you create that success pattern in your mind, you apply it to other things. But again, you always follow the process of not, okay, I was successful at doing this small thing.
Right.
Let me go for the big thing.
Right.
Why don't you just start with going small with those other things as well, and you see how the changes are made?
I mean, I think that ties into having someone coach you.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're known locally here that you're an amazing coach and you're very good at helping people. And, you know, it is a true statement. And that having someone like you to help a person through that and even to hold them back, you know, because the one thing that as we age, you know, it becomes more and more unlikely that we're going to go from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. But we mentally still think, like I still think that I'm going to go and run an ultramarathon. And that's probably, I know it probably won't happen.
Ego knocking at your door and going,
exactly
hey buddy, answer.
Smarten up, you know, and I think like having someone who really knows what they're talking about to reel it back when necessary and push when necessary.
For sure.
And really to build that plan, you know, like the times in my life that I've worked with trainers, they're not all like, and not all trainers are equal, you know, and so you can work with a personal trainer who will just push you and push you.
Yeah.
And that might be, you know, in your early 20s when you're in shape, that might be what you need, you know, but when you're in your 40s or 50s and you're out of shape, that's probably not what you need. You know, you need a real coach. And and I think that in finding someone to help you, you really need to explore how they work with your mentality, your point in life, how they can help you.
Yeah.
And if you have a goal, the goal should be both of your goal.
For sure.
Right. And that's something that is really interesting to me that I want to explore on how to achieve that.
For sure.
So with that in mind, I want to go in the direction of talking about a bigger picture than just the physical aspect of this.
Sure.
Because I really think that, you know, the same way that you were talking about building habits and creating those mental start stops, really we're looking at a holistic view of health.
Right.
And that ties into, you know, how spiritually, how are we, like how at peace are we with the way we see the world?
Right.
You know, our mindset, are we all over the place? Are we incredibly stressed? Are we, you know, living on the edge of insanity? Or, you know, and then obviously physically, where are we starting from? Are we a healthy person with these other issues that wants to build muscle? Or are we someone who's out of shape, who wants, you know?
For sure.
So that, I'd love to get your take on that and how a person would holistically approach health.
Well, you have to be honest with yourself when asking, are you a stressed person, right? A lot of people will answer, no, I'm not stressed. But if I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your stress level? Well, when I drive, people piss me off, right? If you're not a stressed person, people won't get you angry. Like, they'll have moments where they will, but it's not a consistent thing. I was reading this book one time, I can't remember the author's name, but he mentioned something about people today, we live of the mentality, without even knowing it, as though we are running from a saber-toothed tiger every day. And that's going through everything in life. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Illnesses have increased,
right.
You know, mental health, the mental health aspect of things has definitely increased. We're starting to see a lot more depression, anxiety, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, all these things. You wonder, where did they come from? Now, yes, they might have become a habit turned into an addiction or even something even worse. But that has to start from something. And if we're able to analyze ourselves and say, what's stressing me out? Am I anxious about something? Am I depressed? Am I worried about certain things? And it's very easy to have that happen when we look at what it is that we surround ourselves with and what we view, what we listen to. One thing that I encourage my clients to do often, and even I do it on my own podcast, a couple of episodes I've spoken about, is be aware of how you feed yourself audibly and visibly. Physically feeding yourself is important too,
of course,
but audibly is key and visibly is key. And we can see in the past year and a half, as it continues, you know, you have social media, you have regular media, news, people in conversations just at the pool, at the park, talking about the same things over and over again. Mm-hmm. And that adds stress to us, even when we don't think it. As soon as it enters into our hearing distance, or we're able to see something and we might kind of go, that's not really a worry of mine. How fast do you turn that off and move on to something that's going to be of benefit to you? And that's where self-examination again comes in. It's realizing, okay, am I a stressed person? Am I an anxious person? Do I have things that I combat with on a daily basis? What things do I need to eliminate? Because that really makes the difference. If a person's trying to change their body, their mind also has to play a major, major role. If your mind is not in check with what you're trying to do, it's very difficult to see lasting success physically, nutritionally, and everything else in between, even financially, right? A person can end up having a job that makes them an amazing amount of money, but they squander it. Why? Because maybe mentally they're not seeing that the importance of saving money. They're not seeing that, you know, the income that they're making is not supposed to make their life. It's to help assist with their living and contribute to, you know, building wealth for their family and, you know, financial stability and things like that. And all these things become stressors because now you worry about, am I going to make enough money to do this and do that?
Right.
So everything becomes a stress point. It's identifying what's the most important things to think about and what's not important to think about, and looking at things from two different standpoints. So from a holistic standpoint, looking at things, you have to really identify what's on your mind, what's stressing you out, how can you navigate and manage those things, and maybe, I don't want to say compartmentalize, because at some point they'll come back up, but identifying each thing and saying, is this something I need to be concerned about? No, put it away. Is this something I need to be concerned about? Yes. Okay, put it on this side.
Right.
And then sectioning things off and realizing that your list of things you should be concerned about, the list is way smaller than you think it is when you write it down.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you're able to picture it and see all the things that I'm worrying about. I have nothing to do. That has nothing to do with me. Right.
Right.
Protests and stuff. If you're not a person who's into protests, that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Right. If the stuff that you're seeing on the news about climate change and stuff, it's very important. Is it affecting you directly? It may not be. Can you change that? Well, you can do your part. Great.
Exactly.
Can you do everything else? You can't.
So do your part and move on.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's a sense of humility that's
right.
required on everyone's part. And often the E word, ego, comes into play, and people, their ego starts knocking at the door, and they go, no, and this sense of pride comes up, and that's what makes it difficult for them to identify where maybe they need to hone their focus on, instead of looking at all these other areas too. And that's what creates a big log jam of stress that we don't even realize that we have. Everybody has to have that moment, what I call an aha moment, mm-hmm. where now they see it clearly and they go, I get it now. It's just unfortunate that sometimes the aha moment happens when you're in the hospital. Yeah. Or a doctor tells you your cholesterol's too high, this is happening, you lose your job, your relationship within your family is poor, within your friends is poor. Sometimes it takes that moment, because some people are not they'll situate themselves around people who are going to agree with what they're doing.
Right.
Whereas my role as a trainer is not to agree with what you're doing. It's to see, what are you doing? Because you came to ask me, hey, am I doing this right? And if I say no, and you walk away, well, then you really didn't want to know my answer.
Right.
Or you really just don't want to change.
Right.
And maybe it's not that you don't want to change, it's just that you're not ready for it. And if you're not ready for it, that's okay. I've had clients come all the time. They've come, they want to do an evaluation assessment, we do the evaluation, they come for the evaluation, they never come back. And I go, okay, cool.
Right.
I don't get mad. It's not something I did.
Yeah.
It's that they weren't really ready to take that step. And that's where, tying into what we're talking about, and even for yourself, is asking yourself the question, why? What is the reason why I'm here? Why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to lose 40 pounds? Why do I want to get healthier? There has to be a reason other than something that's aesthetic. If it's aesthetic, it's not going to stay.
Superficial, it's not going to last.
Exactly. It has to be something that's ingrained. And sometimes it takes that deeper digging, to figure that out, to then go, I know what my why is now.
Right.
And some people don't get it until maybe 2 or 3 sessions in, or maybe even the 5th session in, maybe even a couple months in. They mm-hmm. don't get it until they really are able to question themselves and go, why am I really doing this? And when they have that alone time to think about it, then they're able to identify, oh, this is the reason why. That's the reason why. That's the reason why. And then even in those reasons that you have, those micro whys, you choose the one that's going to be the most, that affects you the most, that you think about the most, that really hits you maybe emotionally, to think, okay, I need to change. I've had evaluations in the past couple of weeks where I've spoken to people, and their reason for being there was, mentally, I'm just not in the right place. And I know it's because my health is just not in check, and I just need to be in a place of peace. And they figure coming to the gym is going to do that. Now, yes, it's great because you have the right encouragement, you have the good support, the gym space is amazing. But when you go home, what happens then? Because we can do all that stuff for an hour or 45 minutes or 30 minutes, but after that time is gone, what can you apply from what you take from there? What are you going to apply to your everyday? And if you apply nothing, then what did you really learn?
So that's really a perfect segue into something else I wanted to ask you about, which is the role of accountability mm-hmm. and how to create an accountability system, mm-hmm. Within this, if you're doing a health transformation or just in general, you're improving yourself. Like, what do you recommend in terms of setting up accountabilities?
Having a partner that is not your friend. And I say that with all sincerity. And
that makes a lot of sense.
And I say that with all sincerity, meaning not that a person can't be your friend.
Right.
But if they are your friend, chances are they're not that they're not going to help you get to where you need to be, but when you are slipping, they're not going to tell you, hey, you're out of line.
Right.
They might, but they might not.
Because they don't want to hurt your feelings, or they don't want to. Right. There's a lot. There's a lot of other things at play.
Right. Do I become friends with some of my clients? Of course I do.
Right. Of course.
We have a great relationship.
Right.
But they know the line is, he's my trainer, he's my coach, he's there for this reason. I pay him for that reason. You don't pay me to talk to you, to be your friends, and we shove it around. You pay me to work. Right. To help you get to where you have to get to. Because if that's not what I'm doing, then you're wasting your money.
Right.
And who has time or the finances to be wasting your money? If you want to just hand me hundreds of dollars for no reason, then sure.
Right.
Hand me hundreds of dollars. We can hang out and cool. Can I come to the gym and just pay you money? Sure, no problem.
It's a little weird, but okay.
Exactly. But people come because there's an outcome that they're desiring, and you can't get to that outcome without doing the work. So if you have an accountability partner who's not willing to help you do the work or make sure that you're on your toes, then they're not the right partner for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So as not just a personal trainer, but also a business owner, you have to run a business, and whether you have help with that or not, you're obviously, your passion, your knowledge, your core is how to train a person, how to help a person get healthy and fit and so forth. Yeah. But there's also the business side of what you do. For sure. Like, what are your top challenges that you face as running a business that is tied to that passion?
Something I've had to work on lately, which is, and my wife says this to me all the time, she's like, we're not good business people because we're too nice in the sense of like, if a person owes us money, it's like, oh, just pay whenever. Yeah. Or we sometimes undercharge what we should. Right. And one thing that I'm often reminded of is that in an industry like fitness, where you have so many like sliding scales, you have to know, based on your experience, what is the value that represents you the most, or at least you come close to that. Because I'm more of a focus on the person first. Like even when we talk about when I have a consultation with somebody, in their mind they're thinking, how much does this cost? But we don't even talk about that until the end, because you want to make sure that they understand you are committed to investing in them. Right. Not investing in them mentally and stuff. And when they're able to see that, now whatever you present to them, they go, for sure, I'm gonna invest in this. So you don't have to focus on the main area first and then go into everything else, because people, once they hear a price of something, they go, wow, $100, and they're always thinking $100, but they're not thinking about what you're trying to tell them, right? So I'd rather let's silence that for a second, and we'll get into that after. So that's one challenge, is that really being able to assess my value and say, okay, what am I really worth as far as like dollar value, and being able to present it to somebody for them to be like, okay, and being able to say, okay, you don't think that it's worth it? Cool, no problem, and walk away. Right. Which I have no problem doing now. Whereas before in the past, you might have been like a car salesman. Like, okay, wait. Let me see what I can do.
Let me talk to my manager.
Let me talk to my boss. And I go home, or I was like, what the heck, man? Like, we have to eat, But it's identifying that, like really seeing, where do you land? Like some people are just not meant to be business owners. Yeah. Because they don't understand the dynamic of, I got to charge you and I got to do this because of these factors here, but I want to help you. Right. Some focus more on that and less on this, and some do the opposite. I try to be in the middle as much as possible. I think I am now, but it has taken some time.
And it's a tough balance.
It is a tough balance. Especially when you get to like people, you're like, man, I don't want to charge them like this. So, but you don't have a choice, because they respect you more.
That's right, 100%.
When you're able to say, this is what the value is, and boom. Yeah. And even if when they do those things like ask for a discount, I go, okay. Right. That is not worth my time, And
you're asking for a discount. Why? What am I not worth what? Like, look, for example, right now it's the pricing for moving goods across the world is absolutely crazy. Container rates are really, really high. Yeah. Everything is getting expensive, right? Yeah. But people are paying for that because they understand that in order to maintain their business, that's what it costs, right? Yeah. So, and if that container becomes really, really valuable, so if they value their health and what you can do and the value you can bring to them, and they're going to pay it because they understand that. You know?
And they have to know the difference between, I don't want to say a cheap way of going things, a more economical way, I guess you can say, and then a way that is an investment, right? And it's seeing things from both perspectives and understanding that, okay, if you start out with an initial investment, you may not have to go the economical way repeatedly. Because now once you've established kind of like a pattern,
you grow
as a person. You go, oh, okay, I don't need to do I can eliminate those things. Because typically when a person, from what I've found, and I could be wrong, when they go the route of, I'm just going to do videos, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, that's great. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, it's free, it's available to you, right? But you have no coaching. If you have no coaching, you have no direction, you're just kind of doing random things. So it's like, oh, I'm going to do this video, and I'll do this one, and I'll just go for like a walk, and I'll start doing handstands randomly. And you start putting these things together thinking that you're getting somewhere. And you're realizing that, A, you might be missing out on fundamentals, B, your posture is terrible, and C, the collection of things you're putting together has just been a mishmash of like things you just try to get a deal on that doesn't lead to ultimately to your goal. Whereas you would save time and energy if you just said, let me invest in this route, go with a coach who's going to direct me for X amount of time, and then once I've accomplished what I need to accomplish from that, I can still refer to them as if I needed help, but now I know which way to go. The picture becomes way clearer. And I aim to do that with all my clients. Is some of them, they stay for extended period of time. Some of them kind of go, I think I got the most out of it now. Cool. Let me continue to help you and supply you with what you need. And you can always come to me anytime. And if they want to do a one-off session, sure, fine. Or maybe they just decide, hey, you know what? I think I need to work out with somebody. And I'm like, sure, I love a workout partner. It's not a problem. That's the type of value that a person can expect when they get a good coach, whether it be me or someone else. When a coaching system is good and they're genuine and they're really invested in you, the person, you can see it in the way that they speak, the way they carry themselves. It's not about the financial of everything. It plays a major role for sure because it has to. But it's not the main focus. The main focus is, how can I help this person get from A to B? And if all they need is help getting A to B, and they think the momentum that they get from A to B is going to drive them where they need to go to, by all means, let me help them get to A to B, and that's that. And at least you're able to contribute to helping them out, and it just becomes a process. And then they refer people to you. And then now you have a referral system that goes A to B, A to B, A to B, and now you're known as the A to B guy. And if you're known as the A to B guy, you might have way more success than trying to chase people who are just looking to get the best bang for their buck.
So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was the Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York who was on the podcast. And he did a complete turnaround on his life. He ended up with diabetes and all kinds of issues, and he was losing his sight, and like really horrible stuff. And this happened in his 50s. And he ended up becoming whole food, plant-based completely, and everything reversed, including the diabetes and everything. So now he's a huge advocate for health within the school system, and he's trying to bring a lot of those changes to New York and eventually nationally and whatever. I really enjoyed the interview, and I thought it was really interesting, and he brought up some good points. But one of the things that really stuck with me, and this is, I think, one of the hardest challenges that most people face sitting on this side of the table, is it's one thing when you're about to go blind and you're really, really sick and you have a major wake-up call, you have a heart attack or something happens, and it's like, oh my God, now I have to do something. It's a very different thing when you're looking at your life. Things are overall fine. You've jumped off the cliff, but you haven't hit the ground yet, right? And then you're thinking, I could still do this. I could still do this. I'll work out next week. Know. How does a person go from a state of non-emergency in terms of what they think their situation is to creating enough of a personal sense of urgency to actually take action and make a change? A pandemic. Okay, there you go. That's a good answer.
The flip of things where everything became uncomfortable for everybody changes people's mentality and outlook on things. Look at how it impacts people's work. Now, like for years, mental health and wellness and physical activity has been something that some companies have incorporated. Others have been like, nah. After this, everybody's on board with it now because it impacted them. So people start to make major changes and adjustments when it affects not just them but everybody around them. Whereas if it affected everyone around them and not them, they kind of go, I'm okay. Right? We tend to always act as to if everything in my house is fine, I'm good.
It's exactly the point I'm making.
There's an earthquake happening outside.
That's right. It just happened to someone else.
It's fine.
Right.
It's fine. It's only when it starts to happen to the people closest to you or to you directly. Now, a proactive person would go, hey, I'm seeing this happen. I better protect myself now.
Right.
And that's the shift that I think people need to start making. What's actually going to take it to happen is something like a pandemic or just overall a re-examination of living to see, okay, could I make changes here? Where am I stuck? Where am I making where do I need to make adjustments? Even using my own business, for example, everything was flying. I had clients doing classes. I was busy, this and that. Pandemic hits, everything stops.
Right.
Now, I still had clients online, or I was able to shift them to online. I was still able to see people in person kind of at a distance. So everything slowed down, but now I had to get adapted to what happens now if there's a slowdown.
Right.
So it now adds another element to your business. So now a person who's running a business needs to be aware of, okay, if in the event this happens, I got to do this.
Right.
The unfortunate thing is, even when it comes to people individually, is that, like I said, they wait until, like you were actually mentioning, they wait until something major happens to them in order to do something.
Right.
Their aha moment should have happened beforehand, not when it actually happens to them. And unfortunately, until things change as far as like certain people taking the lead and leading by example and demonstrating these things like the gentleman you're speaking of and trying to do things to instill within their own homes, their neighborhood, their community, maybe contributing their part here and there, until that happens, people are always going to be in the same situation until something of that nature changes. So we can all make all the best changes we want. And I think that it's amazing that everyone does that. But you always have to, like, persons who are on the outside looking and going, look at those people do that stuff. I don't need to do that because I'm fine. Something has to click for them before that happens. And to be honest, what will click for them, I have zero idea because everyone individually doesn't. Everyone's different, right?
It's so interesting because what you're describing is exactly what businesses are going through.
Yeah.
You know, businesses went through the same shakeup, and now they're starting to look at their supply chains or the way they operate. Okay, how do I make better? How do I look at my culture within my business? What's my marketing look like? Well, you know, everyone's starting to improve their businesses because there's been a major event, right? And that's, you know, and that right now they need the help.
Yeah.
And they should have taken the action beforehand because when the pandemic hit, they would have been ready for that and they would have been able to manage it.
And the companies that thrive through something like this and who continues to succeed are the ones that looked at things and said, what could affect the mental health of my staff? What could affect the physical health of my staff? What things can we put in place ahead of time? Before that happens. And it's a matter of looking into other environments and seeing, okay, how are they doing in Europe? How are they doing in this country, this place, this city? Maybe they're doing things differently. Maybe we can adapt that a bit more. But if a person always thinks that they're fine, they haven't really like read the room.
Right.
And companies, unfortunately, they don't always read the room well. Mm-hmm. They make decisions and they go, this is what we're going to do.
That's right.
And everyone's like, what the heck? But also, too, a person may not be speaking up. And sometimes, in some instances, one person speaks up.
Right.
They're not enough speak up to go, yes, I agree, let's do something different. And if one person speaks up out of the thousands of employees,
it's not a voice that's going to be heard.
It's not enough.
Right.
When it should be enough.
Right.
So I'm really hoping that pattern changes for a lot of people, that this sort of situation has really opened the eyes to everyone to kind of see, okay, instead of me waiting until the fall comes and maybe we have another shutdown, what do I do now to prepare myself for that?
Yeah, proactively.
Be proactive, you know, and if it means getting used to being outside and doing activity, getting used to drinking more water or you know, stocking up on veggies and growing things yourself and taking the lead and try to like build on those things. If you start now, you don't have to wait until everyone else is doing it.
Right.
Right? And unfortunately, the trend is everyone does I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people move when other people move.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a person who goes, you know what, I'm going to lead before anything even starts. If you know there's a storm coming, and you know the storm's going to come, not right now, but it's coming sometime soon, you'd start buying supplies to board your windows.
Sure.
You buy extra plastic, you buy extra food, store things there, and people look at you and go, why are you doing that? Well, because I'm getting ready because I know the storm is coming.
So that's exactly the point I was making. And the point is, the storm is coming.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have challenges at work. You're going to have challenges in your life.
Yeah.
Life is not linear. It's up and down. And what's going to happen is, if you've taken the proactive steps to be healthy, mentally, physically, spiritually, and so forth, then you're going to be able to face those with the best possible way that you can face them as an individual, right? And I think this is all about, how do we become as good as we can be, and how do we live our full lives and be our best selves?
Right.
And the only way to do that is to be proactive.
For sure.
So it doesn't matter how good you are in business or in anything else, you will fail eventually if you've neglected other areas.
For sure. Go back and ask yourselves the questions. Okay, what do I need to focus my energy towards? My health, wellness, mental health, things like that. Everything else that's irrelevant, why am I centering my focus on that? If Instagram doesn't pay you money, forget it. Facebook doesn't pay you money, forget it.
That's right.
Right? If people that live on your street have no relevance to your life, why do you care? But people gravitate towards the things that they are more appealing to things that we can't control. It's like, but I want to control this. Right. And that's, your ego has to go out of there. Put your ego aside. Put your pride aside, be humble, and realize, okay, I can't control this stuff, but I can control this.
Right.
And me controlling this might be the example that other people need for them to get control of their own lives too. And if, like you were saying, if everyone just does the best that they can to do the best they can, we'd have a whole bunch of people trying their best, and we'd have less of the nonsense that we have happening right now. But because it doesn't always work that way, it's easier said than done. That's the unfortunate thing.